Trying to figure out how to deal with challenging behaviors can be rough with our young kids, especially when we are in the middle of it. It's in those moments when we as parents are most likely to trickle down the slippery slope of using rewards and bribes to try to get our kids' behavior back on track. Sound familiar? If you gave a resounding yes, then you're going to want to stay tuned to this video. I'm Jill, also known as the Mentor Mom, and I help parents navigate the ups and downs of the early childhood years by sharing information on development, discipline, and parenting tips. So in this video, I'm going to share 5 reasons why you do not want to use bribes and rewards, as well as several strategies that you can use instead. So let's get to it. I want to start this video by saying we've all done it, myself included. We have all used bribes at some point in time when raising our young children. And what I find is that we're most likely to use bribes when we don't have a backup plan or other strategies in place. So don't feel bad if you've done it. We still have time to change and fix this. You just need some new tools for your toolbox for those challenging behaviors. I always like to start my videos by talking about the why. So in this case, I want to talk about why using rewards and bribes is not a good thing for our kids' long-term development, nor for the parent-child relationship. But before we do that, I want to give a distinction between an external reward or bribe and positive reinforcement, because I'm going to be talking about that as a strategy in a bit. So an external reward or bribe is just that. We're trying to modify behavior by giving an external reward. Now, with a positive reinforcer, we're trying to modify behavior, but the change of the behavior is more for an intrinsic purpose, right? To feel closer to my mom and dad, to be able to do an activity that I want to be able to do, as opposed to that external thing where if I use the toilet, I get to have an M&M. We ultimately want our kids to use the toilet because that's just something that we have to do. So we'll talk a little bit here about why using those external rewards can be a danger in helping us achieve our goals for our kids. One of the primary reasons we want to avoid using external rewards to modify behavior is because it diminishes intrinsic motivation. Intrinsic motivation is where we learn to do something because it either makes us feel good, it gives us a good outcome, it's something that we know that we need to do, and it's not driven by this big reward on the outside. For example, I have an intrinsic motivation to keep my house tidy because it makes me feel good when I sit down at the end of the day to know that I don't have to do anything. I can just relax because all my chores are done. That's an intrinsic motivation. If my motivation to do my chores was completely reliant on some external reward, like getting paid for it or getting a pie every time I cleaned, well, I might do it for a pie. But you see what I'm saying? Over time, I may not care about getting that pie. I might not care about getting paid that day because maybe I got some other kind of income that came in that day and I don't need that extra $20. When we do it for an intrinsic motivator, that remains constant for us most of the times throughout life, whereas an external motivator, those can change depending on our mood. I'm always a big fan of looking through the lens of the bigger picture. So that's one thing I really want parents to think about with these little interactions that you're having with your child, is I want you to think about, what do I want my child to be doing with this particular behavior or situation that's leading to this behavior? What do I want it to look like a year from now? And what are the things that I'm doing now? Are they going to help me achieve that goal a year from now? Or are they going to keep me from achieving that goal a year from now? For example, if your goal is to have your child pick up their toys before dinner every day, is a year from now, do you still want to be rewarding them with screen time or a special treat for dessert? I mean, if you do, that's on you. But if your goal is that you just want them to learn that this is what we do, we pick up our toys and then we sit down for dinner, think about how using that reward is either going to help you get there or not help you get there. So think big picture. That takes me to the next reason why we don't want to use rewards, and that's because it's a short-term fix. And what we don't want is for our kids to be more motivated by the reward, because that takes away their ability to learn the value of modifying their behavior, because that value is now linked to this thing that I get. And that can long-term impact the development of that intrinsic motivation, which I've got to add is going to be key for their success as an adult. We also want to avoid risking dependency on that reward. As I mentioned, it's a short-term fix, but if we continue to reward a behavior like not sitting still and being disruptive during meals with this iPad, we're over time creating a dependency on this, right? I always say cells that fire together, wire together. And if I've learned that when I start to act up, I get the iPad and this is what I do during meal times, it's going to make it a dependency for the child. I need to have that iPad because this is what I do. You've created a habit from their perspective. And if you don't want that to be the habit a year from now, then you need to modify what you're doing now. And rewarding them with that iPad is not going to help you get there. A key reason that we want to avoid using external rewards and bribes is because it could set up potentially some unhealthy habits, such as when we use food rewards to modify behavior. We don't want to set up a dynamic in an unhealthy relationship with food where when I've done something good, I should have some kind of sweet snack that's processed sugar and not good for me. The same is true of screen time, right? We know screen time isn't a great thing, and most of us don't want our kids having excessive screen time. But if we're using that as a reward, we are the ones that are setting up a potentially unhealthy relationship between good behavior and screen time. Perhaps one of the biggest reasons, in my opinion, that we want to avoid using bribery and rewards to modify behavior is because we're stealing away learning opportunities. Every time our children make a poor choice, or every time they're experiencing or demonstrating challenging behaviors, those are opportunities for us as parents to help guide them and teach them a better and more emotionally regulated way to handle those challenges. And that's crucial, right? Because we're trying to set them up to be emotionally healthy teenagers and adults that can handle the ups and downs of life without batting an eye, because they had that experience when they were younger with our guidance and our support. When we use rewards and bribes, I'm going to say it, we're taking the easy way out. In the short term, but in the long term, it is not going to work out for our kids, and it's not going to work out for us as parents, because it's going to be harder to change that behavior down the road. So it also steals away your opportunity for learning as a parent, which leads me into strategies. Let's talk about some things that you can try instead of bribing. Hey there, sorry to interrupt, but I wanted to share a really awesome resource with you. If you happen to be struggling with the ups and downs of raising young kids, the big emotions, the challenging behaviors, trying to figure out your child's unique personality and feeling triggered by some of the challenges that you're encountering, then you're going to want to check out my new Big Picture Parenting program. This program is designed for parents of young children. And unlike many parenting programs, this one not only helps you learn how to navigate all of those challenging behaviors that are very typical for the age using positive discipline strategies, it also helps you to understand your triggers, where they come from, and what you have to do to get rid of them. Doing those two things together sets you and your child up for long-term success. And the best part about this program, unlike a lot of others, is that you don't have to do it alone. You pay for the program one time, low cost, and then you get weekly coaching sessions with me. So if you get stuck or you need that extra bit of support, you can hop on our group coaching call every week and get guidance. My goal is to set you up for success, and we know that getting it right in the first 5 years is going to have the biggest impact on the later years. So if that sounds like something you're interested in, check out the link below. Okay, let's get back to the video. Before I go into the strategies, I want to talk about the number one thing that you need to do when you're dealing with challenging behaviors, and that is to have a plan of action. So what I suggest to parents is to write down all of the behaviors that are driving you crazy, right? My kid's back talk, or not cleaning up when I tell him to, or not getting dressed in the morning in time for us to get out the door for me to make it to work on time. Write them all down and then prioritize them. Which one of those is driving you the craziest? Because that is the thing that you should start with. So your plan of action should be thinking about what ways can I utilize maybe some of the strategies I talked about in this video. What scenarios can I put into place? What is my plan? If they do A, what is the B that I'm going to give that's going to help them learn that that behavior is not effective or efficient for them in that situation? Pre-planning and having a plan of action can make a huge difference in helping us to avoid falling into the trap of using bribes and external rewards. And it's probably one of the things that parents are not doing enough of, that pre-planning and having an idea of how they want to attack these things. And why I suggest starting with the most challenging is because, let's say it's back talk. Your little one's constantly sassing you. You've got the strategies, you start implementing the strategies, and you're just focusing on that one thing, and you start to, over time, see improvements. The behavior's not showing up as much. You're enjoying the interactions with your child more often. You're gaining momentum, and now guess what? He's hardly ever doing that. Now we can move on to the next thing, like getting dressed in a timely fashion to get to school on time. You're going to have more energy to work on the remaining things, right? To get to that point where you're like, I've got this. It builds confidence for you as a parent. So before you start doing anything, sit down, identify the challenging behaviors you want to address, identify your number one priority. And while you work on that, just know we're just going to do the best we can to maintain in the other areas. We're not going to expect perfection there. We're just going to focus on that one really challenging behavior and give it our all. Okay, so let's talk about some strategies that you can use. So when we think about strategies for challenging behaviors, there are tons of them. The strategies I'm going to share in this particular video are strategies that are proactive. These are things that you can do outside of those power struggles and challenging moments to try to help avoid them. So the number one strategy that I'm always going to recommend to parents is connection time. Now, when I'm talking about connection time, I'm talking about giving your child 100% of your undivided attention. That means the TV is off, the phone is put away, and you are 100% tuned into your child. And I know there are going to be a lot of parents out there that say, I do that all the time with my child. But I'm gonna challenge you a little bit. Do you really? Are you really 100% invested in that moment with your child? Or is your mind drifting away and thinking about the groceries that you've got to get later on? This is really about filling your child's bucket. One of the biggest reasons that we see challenging behaviors for young kids, in my professional opinion and experience, is because they need to be seen and heard. And the best way for them to feel that is to give them your undivided attention. Now, I'm not saying you have to spend 5 hours a day with your child one-on-one. It can be short bursts. It could be 10 minutes during breakfast time where they're eating and you guys are just having a conversation, but the conversation is about them. It could be that you're doing 15 minutes of floor time play with your child and they get to lead the play. Your phone is put away and nowhere in sight. You've got your watch off so you're not getting any alarms. This is 100% about them. If you pepper in 10 to 20 minute intervals several times a day with your child, giving them that undivided attention, you're going to see a significant decrease in those challenging behaviors because they don't need to act out to build connection from you. Another great strategy for avoiding challenging behaviors that's proactive is to use positive rewards. Now, I want to be clear about this. Positive praise and positive rewards, they get to be kind of a mushy kind of area. What I'm always going to suggest to you, especially if your children are younger, is to kind of take yourself out of the equation when you're giving the positive reinforcement or positive statements. What we really want to do is, again, build that intrinsic motivation. We want to build a dialogue that helps your child to realize that making these choices is beneficial for them and makes them feel good about who they are. So an example might be if you see your child maybe give a toy to their sibling who fell down and is crying, that's an opportunity to give some positive feedback. Wow, look at that. Your sister was crying and you gave her your toy. I see you. I see you being a good brother. That meant a lot to her. You should be really proud of how you take care of your sister so well, right? So that's different than me saying, oh, I'm so proud of you. That becomes about our validation. We don't want our kids to grow up to be that person who has to have approval from everybody else. We want them to make the choices because it feels good in their own skin, irregardless of what other people are saying. So think about your words when giving that positive reinforcement. And one more thing I have to add to that is I think it's a highly underutilized tool. And I think if we did more of it, you're filling your bucket. Just like we talked about that connection, you're filling their bucket every time you say, I saw what you did there doing the clearing the table without being asked. Look at you being a go-getter and taking initiative. Well done. Again, they're feeling seen, they're feeling heard, they're feeling validated because of the choice they made. I love the statement, catch them when they're being good. When you start to focus on those moments, you're going to notice a decrease in the other ones. So my tip on trying to remember to do this is to put sticky notes in the areas where you guys hang out and just put praise or whatever word you want to put on it. Put it on the fridge, put it in the bathroom, put it in the bedroom, so that when you're in there and you can be like, oh, wow, he just did that cool thing a couple of minutes ago. Let me point that out that I saw him do that. It can go a really long way to filling their bucket and decreasing the need for them to challenge you. Another great proactive strategy is, of course, choices. If you've been following me, you know that I probably never do a video where I don't mention choices, but choices are a great way to share control. Toddlers and preschoolers are always trying to figure out how they can gain more control. And it's because if you think about it from their perspective, they don't have a lot of control, right? We decide when they have to get up, a lot of times what they're having for breakfast, whether they can watch TV or go outside. They don't get a lot of say over that. So when we use choices all throughout the day about simple things that we personally don't care about, it's like putting money in the bank, right? They feel like they've got more control. And if they feel like they've got more control, they're going to be less likely to act out in ways to try to get control. And let's be honest, when young kids do that, it's almost always when it's the most inconvenient for us. Like we got to get out the door. That's when they're going to have a fit that we gave them the wrong color sippy cup, right? Or when we have to get to so-and-so's house or make dinner. It's always in those moments where we need to have control, where they decide that they're going to try to get some. So use choices all throughout the day. And here are a couple of guidelines for when you are using choices. First, you only give 2 choices, and they have to be things that you're okay with. If you don't want your child eating a sweet, we're not going to offer that as a choice during snack time. Instead, we might say, do you want an apple or do you want a banana? And we don't really care as long as they eat a piece of fruit. So only give 2 choices. Some of those smart power control kids are going to try to throw in 3, 4, and 5 other things. But I want this, but I want that. We're going to stick to 2 choices because we want them to learn that the whole kitchen isn't open to you. Okay. So give them 2 choices. And if they decide to try to throw in a 3rd or a 4th, say, oh, nice try. It's either an apple or a banana. Which one do you want? And if they say, I don't want either one, That's their choice. Okay, I guess you're not hungry. No problem. I'll put this stuff away and then we'll have dinner in about an hour and a half. Maybe you'll choose to eat then. So they've made a decision and now they have to live with the consequence of that decision. Okay, but you shared control and they made a choice. Now, if you have that really challenging kid who says, I don't really care about either one of those, you can make the choice if it's a choice that has to be made. So for example, at dinner time, if you're offering peas and you're offering broccoli and they say, I don't really care, well, then you're going to choose the one that they like least. So if they don't like broccoli, that's what we're going to choose to be the vegetable that goes with dinner. And the reason that we do that is we want them to learn from a young age that when I don't speak up, when given the opportunity to make a choice, I may end up with something that I regret. So we don't want them to be those kids that are walking around going, oh, I wish I would have said something. We want them to be those kids that speak up when they're given the opportunity to achieve and get something that they want. So those are the guidelines. 2 choices of things that you can live with either way. Give them 5 to 10 seconds to make a choice. If they don't, you choose for them and you choose the thing that they want least. And if they decide not to make a choice between the 2 items, that is their choice, and let them experience the natural consequence for it. So the hard thing about doing this strategy, just like with the positive reinforcement, is remembering to do it. So you can do the same thing. Put visual little things all over the house. When I was doing this strategy with our kids when they were really little, I had choices on stickers all over the house. Having them on the fridge and starting with just one of your daily routines makes it easier to be consistent in using this strategy. So for example, oh, there's a fuzz. So for example, if you're going to start, I always recommend starting with meals and snacks, unless you have a picky eater, then you might want to try something else. But if you start with meals and snacks, you're probably doing 3 meals a day and you're probably doing at least 2 snacks. That's 5 opportunities to share control with your child. And once it becomes a habit during meals and snacks, then we can work on maybe we're going to introduce this to during changes and diaper changes and getting dressed, giving them choices between what pajamas and what socks and all of the whatnot. So you can gradually get to the point where you're just giving choices all day long, to the point where your kids are like, ugh, I don't even want to think about how many choices I had today. We know from the research, kids who get lots of choices during the day are less likely to have tantrums and meltdowns. So utilize that to avoid those challenging behaviors by giving them more control through choices. Whew. All right, that is it. I'm hoping that you now have a deeper understanding of just why we want to avoid using bribes and external rewards, as well as how you can create a plan of action and implement some of the easy proactive strategies that I shared in this video. If you found this video helpful, I'm going to ask a big favor. Please consider sharing it with somebody else who you think might find it helpful. My goal is to empower as many parents as possible, and sharing this with others who you think can benefit from it is one of the best ways to help all of us put more tools in our parenting toolbox, because I don't think we can ever have enough of those, okay? So thank you so much for watching, and if you have any questions, please feel free to jot them down in the comment section. I've also, again, put the link for my Big Picture Parenting program if you want to check that out and are interested in working with me, because I'd love to work with you. So check that out. The link is down below. All right, that is it for this time. Until next time.